And this is how the Zioni church culture started.
Yeah.
Is that the Sangomas would be practicing their practices, they would be having their ceremonies and so on. And because they were afraid of being tortured or being killed or imprisoned, they then started to dress themselves up as...
Made it look like a church.
Make it look like a church, had the Bibles, had the crosses, had the everything.
So do Sangomas really believe in God?
Sangomas have, I think, always believed in the Creator. And I am aware that, there are people who will leave their country, like Nigeria, I hear, where Nigerians actually will look at where they're going in Durban from Lagos, and they'll plan ahead of time that they are with their nyangas in Nigeria. They are going to be cooked so that whatever criminal activity they're going to do in that area, they will never be
Caught or anything?
never
Yeah.
nyanga. They had a competition going.
Lightning for lightning.
Yes. And who would hit the other with, the bigger lightning. And they did it. The other nyanga dropped dead. But guess what happened to my ancestor, my great-grandfather, Fela Parati? The lightning split his bum. The lightning split his behind, and he had 4...
No way.
Ngiyakutshela.
No way.
It split his behind, and he died not being able to walk as older, and he would ride a horse with the 4 bums.
Hey you guys, what's up and welcome back to another episode. This is the 24-hour podcast. Thank you guys for tapping in. On today's episode, we got Umuntu Mdala, someone who is a mother to us. She is also an advisor. So she's here to enlighten us about things that are currently happening and also enlighten us about Ubungoma. So how are you doing, Ma'am?
Good, thank you. Thokoza Makosi.
Thokoza Makosi.
Thokoza Makosi. I'm well, thank you.
Well. I am also good. You've been in the industry for quite some time.
Which industry?
Traditional healing industry. I made it sound like it's a corporate job.
Yes. Eh? I'm thinking, which industry are you talking about? Because I do music and I also
You also do music?
Yes, I have 2 albums. One is about 20-something years old. I released an album in 2000. It's called Sangoma.
Okay.
And it's on Spotify. But
I will check it out.
The reason I mention it is some people say that they went through their initiation journey, or when they were going through the journey of awakening, they've been listening to this, they listened to this album for years, but not knowing the artist. So for those out there who want to see and know the artist, I'm the artist. And I released a second one in March, on the 13th of March, this last year.
Okay.
And that one is called Ingoma, Song of the Torn. Yeah, and I'm also a filmmaker, so there's that industry that I belong to. So
you're in a lot of industry. I get it.
When you said industry, I'm thinking, okay, because we just spoke a little bit about film as well earlier. Yeah.
So we're just gonna have a nice conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
I think a lot of people have so many ideas on what traditional healing is, on what Ubungoma is. So for someone who doesn't understand or they fear traditional healing, what would you say to them? How would you explain it to them? What is traditional healing?
Well, in your world, what are some of the fears that you
encounter,
that you perceive?
It's mostly like it's witchcraft. They people think that traditional healers or izangoma
yes, are black magicians.
They would say it in Zulu like
Utsagata. So that has been I think a thing in the ages when it comes to healers.
Yeah.
And I also think that for South Africans, even the word witchcraft, that we're using now, that those terms are coming in with Europeans, for example, the Wicca practices, the spiritual practices of, say, the British in centuries past. They were pagan, I say traditions, if you will. They were basically believers of nature and earth, and using earth materials for healing. And their spirituality is called Wicca. It's the Wicca practices, right? And so the people that were practitioners of Wicca were called witches.
Oh, okay.
As in what we call Sangomas now. Their Sangomas were called witches.
Okay.
But there came a time in Britain and France where I guess the belief systems were changing, and society was now afraid of what so-called witches could do. Their abilities and their practices were foreign. I could say that it was the entrance of Christianity, but it was also just different fears that were coming into their society.
Okay, makes sense.
And what they did is that they started to pass certain laws in their country where if you were seen or heard to be practicing that tradition, the Wicca tradition, if you were a witch, they would round you up, and they would they went through torture, a lot of them, but they also went through what was called burning at the stake.
Yeah. That's more like well-known.
Where
witches,
they burned. I mean, they literally just made examples of these people and made it clear that they did not want them to be practicing what they were practicing, and many of them were collected and thrown on the stakes, and they were burnt publicly, right? And so a lot of them. But that wasn't just a one-time incident. It is something that was then occurring progressively over the centuries, where they were weeding out these types of people that had psychic abilities, that were mediums, that declared themselves able to communicate with the dead, that used fairy nature, and that used gnomes, and all of these things that were sort of a mystical practices of the British native people. And progressively there were people taken to court, there were people arrested and imprisoned for long periods of time. There were inquests. There was just a progressive weeding out of these types of people. So when mostly British people came, or European people came here, and they saw South Africans practicing ubungoma or even ubunyanga, they could only relate it in their minds to what was going on before in Europe.
It makes sense. Yeah.
And then they called us witch doctors.
Oh, okay.
They called Sangomas witch doctors.
Yeah.
And they called Nyangas witch doctors, but they were literally using the terminology that they had branded their citizens in Britain, and they could only relate to us in that way. And so, because of the culture that they were coming from, which was killing those types of people, that is what they began to do here. And they started to progressively kind of culture Africans out of their own traditional practices because they deemed them as witchcraft. And in their country, witches were burned because witches were evil. So we then became evil. And when the missionary situation really started to spread and more people were coming from Christianity or from Europe, bringing Christianity, when they set up their missions and missionaries, they started to, or the mandate was to progressively convert Africans outside of their innate cultural, spiritual beliefs and make them convert to Christianity.
But I feel like they kind of won that war because a lot of African people, they believe so much in Christianity to a point where ukuba isangoma or ukuba inyanga is basically a bad thing.
Yes, it became a very bad thing. I mean, it wasn't just a bad thing. You were killed for it. If you were seen practicing it, you were killed. And this is how the Zioni church culture started. Is that the Sangomas would be practicing their practices. They would be having their ceremonies and so on. And because they were afraid of being tortured or being killed or imprisoned, they then started to dress themselves up as...
Made it look like a church.
Make it look like a church, had the Bibles, had the crosses, had the everything. Hence, in the Zioni churches now, you still have people prophesizing and going into Umoya and telling, divining and telling you, your stories and your psychic things, and without going through the initiation of being a Sangoma. So for us, those were Sangomas who just went into disguise.
So are you telling me that back in the days, Amazayoni, they would carry Bibles, go to church, and then put the Bible aside, and practice their herbs, do their spiritual things?
They would do their whole spiritual thing as soon as there was warnings that the priests or the white Christian people or priests were onto them. They could switch. Literally, they could be in Sangoma mode, and as soon as they get a message that someone is onto them,
start praying.
They put on these clothes with crosses on them,
basically,
and take their and sing the songs that the missionaries had taught them. And as soon as that danger is out of the way, they continue with the ceremonies.
For you to be able to do that, disguise yourself in Christianity, whereas you're going to perform other traditional beliefs, which is your narrative. How strong was Christianity back in the days? Because
very strong. I once interviewed a man who's, I think now he must be in his 70s, and he spoke of the fact that he was given Ubunyanga. He was called to Ubunyanga, and he had dreams and so on to suggest that he should take Ubunyanga. But he said that his mother, who was a Sangoma, when they were young, his mother was a very, very powerful Sangoma in the area of Melmoth, Mkapi. And what would happen is that his father would leave and go to Durban for work, but he would disappear sometimes for a year without coming home to see the children. And what his mother would have to do once a year or whatever time when she thinks, enough, I need to go and find him, is that, and you see in the olden days, Sangomas would wear skins and their shobas, they would have all their hair in a whatever way. And because missionaries were already in the area, Umgapi, in Melmoth especially, what would happen is she would wrap up all her Sangoma clothes and then wear, amarogwe, or the dresses that of the day that were acceptable to the missionaries, and go to Durban to find her father. So eventually this man that I was interviewing said to me, my mother got fed up of always having to do this whole thing, and she just decided that she would become a Zioni. And this is when all of us were now raised in the Zioni church.
Yeah.
And ever since I was a child, this is what I went through. Eventually, my mother then just dropped the whole thing of Ubungoma and surrendered to the Zioni. And apparently her mother became very, very sick later in life. And it was very clear that it's because she abandoned the whole thing without going through the proper customs to then let the gift kind of come to close, or to whatever the customs that needed to be done for her at that time. And she says, despite her being extremely sick, it was very difficult for her to now go against what Zioni did.
Okay.
And this man says to me that I was given ikambi to cure HIV, to actually make the viral load go down, to actually make certain people who had been negative, who had been positive, become negative. But I could not use this great gift of this medicine, which was working on people, because I was a priest in the Zioni church. And in the Zioni belief system, you cannot use medicine. You need to use holy ash, you need to use water, you need to use prayer. And medicine is seen as devil, as evil.
So the cure for HIV was found years back, basically.
Probably not just by him alone, probably others.
So that thing was tested, it worked on certain people.
He took it to the School of Medicine at UKZN, and they found that it actually was working. He had doctors who were telling him that their patients were now negative, and they wanted to meet him to find out what it is that had,
the source, like the original product, the ingredients.
But he says that the doctors would tell their patients to continue using the ARVs because the virus can hide.
Okay.
And he said to me, I used to laugh at the doctors because I would ask how many blood streams do we have? Which other bloodstream is this thing hiding?
Okay, fair enough,
If you say it's hiding, where is it hiding?
Yeah.
So anyway, he got to a place where he just couldn't continue because he was suspicious that the School of Medicine people that were testing his things were now probing into the exact ingredients that he had been using, and he started to be afraid that they might steal his thing and patent it and make it their own. But so he still sells this imbiza on the side for people that need to. In the viral load, he's viral free. He was at once upon a time positive, and him and his wife are completely free. But he says because of the belief system that he developed as a child up until now, he still has not done the proper customs to take his ancestral medicine bag to become a Nyanga properly.
But is he healing like people low-key, people that he knows?
Yes, he does on the side. He manufactures his stock, and he sells by referral.
I want to take you back on something that you said. You said Amasangoma, basically back in the days, they were scared of going in public and performing what they believe in. And then they ended up portraying themselves to be Zioni, and that's how the Zioni church started.
Yes.
So for you to start something like this in a Christian way, do they really believe in God like Amasangoma? Do you guys believe in God? Because that's a bit of, some would say it was disrespectful, but they were forced by circumstances back in the day. So do Sangomas really believe in God?
Sangomas have, I think, always believed in the Creator. Even if you look at some of the things that we do to purify our souls, some of the rituals, some of the cleansings that one does, some of the looking back at our ancestors and making sure that whatever regression happened with our ancestors, that those things are corrected. Some of the customs that we need kept, like the marriage customs and so on. The way that we mediate the spiritual world and cleanse the spiritual world is because we believe in the universal energy that must always stay pure.
Okay.
And that any way that you are contributing, for example, to uptarati or to making something dark, we have recourse. We have things that we recommend that are done to correct things spiritually and come to a place of being cleansed. This is because we believe that nature is pure. We believe that the universe is pure energy, and we believe that we contribute to making that negative or to making that otherwise.
So, where I stayed, I would see Sangomas going to church. But it would be Zion church, like Zion Christian church. So now it makes sense when you are saying, we see, they were hiding in Zion, and that's how Zioni was created. Because I've seen Sangomas going to church, but it was never like the Tuain Osindisiwe. It was never like those churches that were called Osindisiwe. It was like Zioni, they're wearing uniform, but you would see they have those beads in their legs. Maybe if they are still fresh, they still have, what do they call it? Nyongo. Yes. So I would see them, but I would get confused as a child. You would see. In my narrative, I was told to see, you guys are bad people.
We're evil.
Yeah, you guys are evil, Nabatagati and everything. But as I grow, I get to realize that there's a good and bad side of every story.
Well, I mean, as I have said before in other situations, in every single spiritual practice, whether it's organized religion like Christianity or organized medicine like in conventional Western medicine, for instance, there is always going to be corruption. There's always going to be the appearance of the dark forces and the practices. And for us, it's individual. We go through the processes that we go through in our initiations to ensure that we are elevating to a higher place, and that we will use our gift primarily to heal, and nothing else, actually. Not primarily to heal, only to heal. And the thing that one should remember always when one is in a place where they are judging a particular culture that is unknown to them and that may appear even mysterious, is that we have convents, churches where you have bishops and nuns who are implicated in sexual abuses, who are implicated in abusing small children, who are implicated in dark practices.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's sort of it's a common thing that there's a blanket opinion about Sangomas, and I think it's primarily because the narrative has been told from Christians' perspectives, and the narrative has been told from Europeans' perspectives, who have been very much outsiders in our midst, and also who have been very much foreign in terms of the language, in terms of access to who we are, what we do. So a lot of assumptions have been made based on people seeing, how we dress or how we dance or how we, slaughter animals and so on. And if they don't slaughter animals, that is automatically seen as devil practices and so on, because there's and yet, those people's children are the children that believe today that chicken wings come from the fridge in the supermarket. They have no concept
Yeah.
of what it is to actually raise a chicken and eventually have to eat that chicken, and the responsibility of actually having to slaughter the chicken for your ability for eating, right? And so some of the things that are perpetuated against sangomas or traditional practices are insanely kind of out of sync with reality, because, you know, I used to live in Canada, as I've said before, that there every once or twice a year there's Thanksgiving and then there's Christmas. And Thanksgiving, every household has a huge turkey.
Yes. I've seen it on TV.
And every Christmas, there's a huge turkey. Now, because it's European, because it's North American, it's not considered animal sacrifice.
You are cooking now. I hear you. I hear you.
You know, because it's Thanksgiving.
Yeah, but every
Why
household
do you have
has
a chicken?
turkey.
Why do you have the turkey? Why do you have the turkey at the table? You've sacrificed a turkey because you want to give thanks for the harvest or for whatever it is that you're Thanksgiving for.
Okay.
But it's never considered slaughter or animal sacrifice if it is done by them. It's done by the abattoirs. It's done by, and they don't only do it for the household. In Canada, probably millions of turkeys are killed every year, twice a year.
Isn't it called a sacrifice because I slaughtered it myself? Because now they buy the turkeys from the store. They are already dead.
They've had the sacrifice done by the abattoirs, yes.
Oh.
But it's still the same.
Okay.
It's still the same thing. They just aren't groomed and raised and made aware that you actually are eating this turkey. It sacrificed its life. Whether or not you did the sacrificing or the butchers, you are still eating something whose life has been sacrificed so that you can have a turkey at your Thanksgiving table and have a Thanksgiving ceremony. That dinner is just as good as any other ceremony, and probably it's not even as good because there's no prayer for the most families that are doing the Thanksgiving dinner. It's just like, you know, it's almost like regular dinner. The only difference is that there's you know, cousins and aunts and there's wine and there's so on and so forth. It's not even given the sacred ceremony that it should be given, that we give to each animal that is slaughtered for a particular healing purpose. Yeah. It's an animal whose reverence is given to that animal. And we don't randomly go pick animals from the kraal to kill them randomly because we're sangomas. No, there's a very, very specific purpose. Okay. Once in a lifetime, when a child is born, that goat is a communication. The spirit is being ushered to speak to the ancestors, to announce that now a son is born. Once that happens in your life.
They do it twice a year.
And they do it twice a year, and it's millions and millions of it. Randomly, without a prayer, without a purpose. It's just so that it can be decorated at my table. Okay. Granted, I'm not saying necessarily that I endorse that there's got to be a sacrifice of animals for, you know, random reasons, or for
vegans will be angry at you, eh?
You know what I mean. So, but there's got to be an understanding that for us, the soul of an animal that we are given to eat, for example, we don't eat the soul, the animal, for no reason. Like there has to be a reason, and that reason is a healing reason. Okay. That is going to, for us, for instance, the soul of a chicken, you'd find that if someone has a particular ailment, that it will go fine with medicine from the chemist. But if it is a spiritual problem that has to do with some kind of spirit or ancestral connection not done or something, we have to discharge the soul of the animal to speak to be currency. It's like that is like money, and it has to be the spirit of that a size of animal that will actually pay the debt, or that will actually maneuver wherever it needs to be maneuvered.
Okay. Let me give you this scenario, right? I come to you, I have problems. I have serious problems. I have sleepless nights and everything. And then you said, you need to cleanse me, right?
Yeah.
What animal am I supposed to bring to you for me to be cleansed?
It doesn't work like that.
Okay, I get that. But my question is basically based on, if I'm supposed to bring an animal to you to be cleansed,
Yeah.
do I get to leave with that animal when it has already been slaughtered? Or it stays with you?
Yeah, the animal belongs. It's like you are supposed to buy a prescription.
Okay.
Yeah, the prescription. If you take the prescription only halfway because you were instructed to, the remaining pills belong to you. They don't belong to the pharmacy.
Okay.
So I know that because of poverty or hunger or whatever, sometimes there would be a request from the Sangoma, for instance, to the family to say, this will require the slaughter of a goat, right? And then before you know it, the Sangoma is keeping the entire goat.
That's where I'm heading it, yes.
The Sangoma is just looking at the meat that's going to stay with them. And I want to tell you that for Sangomas, the medicine is not the flesh of the animal.
Okay.
The only medicine...
The soul, the spirit.
No. Well, that's true, yes. The only medicine that is physical medicine is the bile. Inyongo.
Inyongo,
that green liquid that is in a pouch that is underneath the liver.
Okay.
When you take out the liver, you'll see that pouch that is green, that's filled with green liquid. Inyongo leo.
Yeah.
That is the medicine.
Okay.
And why that particular part of the animal is the medicine is, I cannot tell you, but I know that if you have a healing done, a necessary healing that requires an animal, and you do not administer that nyongo liquid, drops of it, to the person you're healing, it's as good as you just ate the meat. There's no healing done. So it doesn't happen. So it's got to be that's also why we speak over the goat. We say the intention of the releasing of the spirit of the goat. Why, right? And the Sangoma has to shisa imbepo akulume ashuti. This is now we're making this because the child is ill or because the child is this and that. They have to make that statement before the animal is sacrificed. And why? Because what is paying or buying that space in the universe is the soul of the animal, and it's got to have that intention set before the soul is released. After the soul is released, the nyongo, even if the whole carcass of the animal, the whole body of the animal is thrown in the forest for animals to eat, if the nyongo, the bile, does not get administered, the medicine is not complete. Okay. So for you, it might be penicillin that will take care of your issue. And for me, the spiritual doctor in tradition, the nyongo of that goat is the pharmacy.
Okay. So another thing that I've always heard, it's basically, ukuba isangoma, it's a calling, right?
Yeah.
But can someone just wake up and decide that I want to be a Sangoma? No calling, nothing.
No, you can't train to be a Sangoma. You can't also learn how to be a Sangoma. It's like me desiring to be a twin, because I've just always loved twins and how they dress, the same and so on. And I did have that fetish when I was a child. I used to believe that I had a twin brother, and it just haunted me. I always. So it's not something that you can go to a school for or a university for, or even just show up at a Sangoma's Ndumba and ask to be, made a Sangoma. You can't create a Sangoma. A Sangoma
Needs to be a
is
calling.
born. Yeah, it needs to be genetic, and it needs to be a hereditary thing, and you are born with it. You don't. And I know this myth as well, that people have this understanding that the calling kind of kicks in at 33, or the calling kicks in at 12, or at when you're older.
Supposed
and
to
so
be born
on.
with it.
You're born with it, and all that is different is you're born with it, but at some point in your growth, the awakening of the true purpose of the Sangoma within you starts to
kick in.
activate.
Oh, activate. Okay.
Yes, it's like Jesus at 12, becoming a preacher and being found by his parents lost in the temple, preaching. His Tunyasake was activating.
So, how do you feel about the amount of Sangomas being saturated in the social media? Because it's a well-known fact that to find a really, really good Sangoma or Inyanga, it has to be a referral thingy, because maybe I went to Inyanga and then they helped me, or a Sangoma, they really helped me. And then if I see someone with the same problem that I have, I would say, yo, there's a person that I know. He helped me when I was in the very same situation as you. But as for now, you would just go to social media, you find a lot of people. And I feel like there's so many Sangomas, but there's few good ones that are actually doing the work that they are supposed to do.
Yeah, that's true. And that's because, I think there should be as many Sangomas as there are people that require the treatments and the healings and so on. I don't think that having many of them is necessarily a sign that now, the Sangoma tradition is going down or the quality is decreasing. But what I think is probably happening is that with the advent of poverty, mostly unemployment, poverty, and so on, people are now seeing the trend in knowing things about Ubungoma or Ubunyanga. They're seeing that people are so gullible, and that there's so many consumers who might be going through the awakening process, needing to go through initiation processes and so on, but they are just greedy to so-called grab the market, but they don't have the ability. So, but also on the other side, on the flip side, there are people who are just going through depression and going through anxiety attacks or bipolar, whatever it is that is unrelated to Ubungoma necessarily. But it is now immediately understood that if I'm rising in church and spirit is rising in church, we're singing, we're praying, and all of a sudden now I start to prophesy that this means that I have a calling of Ubungoma, and therefore I start looking for, and we are so quick to run to looking at the solutions from Sangomas that those fake Sangomas and Gobelas take advantage of that.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. So it's basically, poverty is our biggest problem right now.
Poverty, especially in South Africa, is a huge, huge problem. That, or coupled with the fact that there's just not any systems of control. There's no system of policing how these things are happening with traditional things in general, and not just with Ubungoma, but things that are within the culture of Black people in this country. They tend to just be left to do what they, whatever they are going to do. And there's within the traditional systems, whether it's traditional leadership in the different rural areas, the different traditions, there's not enough regulating of society and how the culture is merging into other cultures, or how other cultures are coming into ours, right?
I think for me, one of the regulations that I would want or like to see
Yeah.
in the spectrum of traditional healers, sangomas, inyanga, prophets, and everything, is this of people going to the social media and say, I do witchcraft and I've killed like 5 people. And then they don't mention names, but they say, I've killed 5 people. Okay, you've attested yourself to being a murderer through witchcraft. Why can't they be arrested?
Because one of the reasons I think, I mean, I don't know the real reason, but one of the reasons I think is because we have a mentality of mockery
Okay.
toward tradition, toward indigenous culture in general. And because we sort of mock the whole thing, and also there's a stigma about Black people and the culture of healing or sorcery, it's almost like there's a mentality of, yeah, of course it's to be expected. What did you think?
Yeah.
Of course they're sorcerers, and of course he killed people with witchcraft. That's what Black people do. So sort of there's been a normalizing of Black people being corrupt or being sorcerers or whatever it is.
It's always like
and
a
so
funny
when
thing,
it's always just thingy, it's a buffoonery basically. And so when somebody is saying that, those that should be holding that person accountable, they just sort of think he's joking, or they think that it's just, where are you going to go with following through on that, and there's not enough funding that goes into protecting our society as a whole. I feel since coming back in 2011 or so, I just, the two worlds where I was living in North America and this world, I know for sure that, and I felt this before I even moved back. I wouldn't move back for years because I felt that in South Africa life is cheap.
Okay.
Especially women's lives are cheap. I felt that, it's nothing to say, that there's been someone is deceased and someone took their life, or a person killed, their wife, or where in our society in past decades or centuries, one person dying of violence or abuse, dying, but for any reason, is a huge deal.
Yeah.
And as African society, we have so many rituals and things that we do to honor someone who has lost a member or a member who's gone. And there's so many processes that tells you that society takes this it's a very sacred transition. It's a very important moment in the history of that family. Here now, it's like,
when somebody passes on, life goes on.
Honestly.
But I think it's based on where we are. Like in the villages, I don't know if they still do it. Like if kushoniwe, like kushona makhelwane, asebenzi asenzi lutho.
Nothing. You can't use.
We don't do anything. If you're a farmer, you don't farm.
You don't work.
You don't work. You just wait until the ceremony
until
passes.
Everybody says it's okay now to do that. You know what happened in South Africa in the 80s, going on to the 90s, when HIV/AIDS infections were just spreading like wildfire, and people were dying of AIDS. There was a time when I would come home, and in the village there'd be a funeral there. There's several funerals in the same weekend. And the toll then was like 5 million people a year in South Africa. 5 million
people a year
dying. So it's just like it. I think there was a point where just death was just like, what more do you want? And people became very, very numb, right? And in all of that, as a Sangoma, you reflect and you think en masse, and you're wondering if people, because traditionally with deaths, with just one death, there's so much cleansing
that needs to happen.
Yeah, there's mourning, and then there's people having to, you have to release people from mourning.
Did we have
and they mourn for a year, you know.
Did we have after tears back in the days, or it's a new thing?
Of course,
Okay.
it's not after tears for us. It's just ukhulula inzilo.
So niphuza umqombothi or
No, you don't phuza mqombothi. That's not the issue, and these are some of the stereotypes. That alcohol is never necessarily a part of every single. Here now, people just assume, because it's a traditional ceremony, there must be traditional mqombothi.
Yeah.
Inyongo, that's it. That's our only medicine. When you then have a brewing of something, it's when you are doing a different thing than a funeral cleansing, for instance. When you are bringing a newborn child and you're announcing a newborn child to the ancestors, for example, a celebratory thing.
Yeah.
Then what happens is you remember your grandmothers and your grandfathers because you gather them to speak to them about this newborn.
Okay.
Now that you've gathered them, you now do what they traditionally did, which would be in gatherings of celebration. They would have food, they would have alcohol, they would have mqombothi, they'd have. So what you do when you have a ceremony like that is in honor of them that used to enjoy this. Just like your grandfather used to like whiskey and they used to have whiskey at the end of the night or whatever it is. That's what made him happy.
Yeah.
Then that is the only reason that we would have umqombothi. But it's not like that's what makes the whole thing traditional or legit, is to have umqombothi in the mix. And nowadays it's not just umqombothi. Sangomas are expecting like 6
everything.
crates of beer, 9 crates of beer. Amabhodlela loko kuze kushone ilanga.
Yeah, there's something
And there's some sango cannot even function in a ceremony
without alcohol.
without bottles of alcohol around. They prescribed these, a list of things that they require from the twasa or from the patient in order to be healed, and so on and so forth. And it is just all charlatans. It's all a corrupt way.
I'm learning new words today.
A charlatan is gelegele.
So there's something that I always wanted to know. Ukuba Sangoma, it's a calling. And if it's a calling, it's basically one of your great-grandfathers, grandmothers. They come to you through...
They don't come.
Okay.
It's just a reincarnation.
Okay, it's a reincarnation.
You're born with that person. It's like if your grandfather was a piano player or singer.
I take the talent from him.
No, it's no. You don't take the talent from them.
I inherit the talent. I want to understand.
Okay, let's maybe make it more physical.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
So you have a grandmother look at you.
Yeah.
And say to you, you have the hands of your great grandfather so and so.
Okay.
And you know that when you move this way or that, you remind me exactly of them.
Okay.
Right? That's on a physical level. Asitige manje, they see you are passionate about poetry.
Yeah.
And nobody's ever said anything about there's been a poet in your family or whatever. And then you have this grandmother who says to you, do you know, Uguti, your great-grandfather was Imbongi, a praise poet for the kings, right? And what you have now as a rapper, right, is
similar, okay.
So you are reborn as him.
Okay.
But it's in your body, but his soul is it's a reincarnation thing. It's a rebirth. Not a rebirth, it's a reincarnation. So you are born as them. So however many generations later, he's come through your current mother or family to be you. You are still you.
Yeah.
But the soul that is incarnating is that of that poet who was a praise poet for the kings.
Okay.
So whatever happens in this lifetime, in this body, it's a different body, it's a different mother, father, it's a different geography and so on, is that you start to experience the tendencies of this life. You weren't there when he lived, but all of a sudden you feel you have to go and do poetry. you feel you have to go into the studio and make these
Yeah, man,
your
what's
lines.
up? What's happening? Yeah.
And you feel that, if you haven't done spoken word in a day, like if you haven't said and recited things, you feel out of sorts, you feel unequal, not balanced enough. Yeah, but
Yeah.
so it's not that you are taking it from the air, like from thin air, and bringing it down to your life. It's breathing through you now. And even in your dreams, you get lines fed to you by this soul that is within you that, and you're going, shit, I know, I dreamt.
About this
What
line.
line did they say?
So are you telling me that the way that Kendrick Lamar is so good, he's receiving the bars from his ancestors?
Yeah.
I know.
Whether it's music, or it's poetry, or it's even how to mix creams and products and get essential oils to put together with this and that. That is a Nyanga soul that is translating into today, right? Translating into this world that you're living in. But the entity, the energy, the soul of that individual is born in this body. It's just when the awakening happened, it's when the soul is now telling you, the boy that was raised in Pumalanga, that actually there's me, your soul, that great-grandmother, father, that is living in you, and this is what I am. Yeah. You become consciously aware that you're not the boy that you've been thinking that you were. That's the awakening process. And my job as a Sangoma who initiates others is to condition you to blend the soul part of you that is that great-grandfather with the current human being. Utwalisa is to put on you, is to bring it together, so that so there's no clash with your actual physical world, your ego, your personality, what you've known, that it blends in, and also to bring that great-grandfather, ancestor, from their timeline into this timeline.
Okay, let's just say my Sangoma spiritual awakening comes from my great-grandmother, which is the opposite sex than what I am. Isn't that going to affect my sexuality if I accept it and then I go into a relationship? Because now it's an opposite sex. How is it going to work? Because now my spiritual realm now, it's a woman.
Yeah, but sexuality is not necessarily based on spiritual or soul incarnation. So when I said earlier that when you do the Twasa process, that is when the master, the teacher that's helping you with that, what they do is they help to take that ancestor who was female and to merge them into this male physical body.
Okay.
So that upgrade, or that bringing forth, is all of those things. If they are female and you are male, that soul needs to be upgraded holistically to understand that you are a man who will eventually want, this is the most terrible technology, that the person now has to be brought into the picture of who this body is that they incarnated into.
Yeah.
So the teaching, or the blending of these two, part of it is to educate the soul to be current with your
I understand now,
sexuality. You understand? And then you being physical, you need to understand that because you are effeminate and because you sit like a woman, because whatever it is, you wear high heel shoes and so on and so forth, it doesn't mean that that's your gender preference, or that's how you're created. It can mean that you are embodying an incarnation of a female whilst you're in a male body. Okay. There's no need to carve yourself up to be a woman to accommodate the soul in the physical body that you're in now. What is necessary is a blending of the two spirit, right? And in Native American spirituality, especially the bisexual, they're called two-spirited people, right? And that because they understand that there's the soul that incarnates. The soul may have been female. The body currently of this person is male. And part of the initiation process is to marry the two in a way that is balanced. So that you can still carry... I know Sangomas myself who are male, fully male. Ukumete is one of my best Sangoma friends.
Yeah.
When you sit with them, I can sit with Kumeta and be so familiar, be so like touchy-feely, because he's a female to me, but he's not female. He's a man. He's married. He has children. And he understands that him being female is not a sexual preference. It's also not that he should change how he is and be more and be masculine and so on and so forth. So it's a traditional. In tradition, there is understanding and knowing and knowledge of this phenomenon, and it's very, very common amongst us. You'll have males, a male ancestor that is incarnating in me, to the point where I even sit like they used to. I even want to wear a mape shoe, and I even want to walk around with a stick. I just naturally do things that they did those days. It's just that ancestor is living in memory of how a particular culture that they lived was. It doesn't mean that is that must be solidified in some kind of physical way, that you must become a man or that you must become a woman if your physical body is a man.
So what is one of the darkest things you've ever seen ever since you've became a Sangoma? Like the darkest thing, even till this day, you still can't believe.
I can't believe. I'm so grateful that I have not. I'm so grateful that I have not seen any dark things.
Yeah.
In reality, like in physical 3-dimensional reality, no, I haven't. Like walking into somebody's place or waking up in the night and there's entities no, I've never. But I have seen a tremendous darkness when I remote view certain situations, or when I'm looking to see, for instance, how a particular witchcraft, sorcery, black magic is constructed, and I go to remote view maybe where the great part of the brewing pot of where the center of where these things are coming from, and I see not only the darkness that goes into some of these medicines and rituals and sorcery, but also some of the vile nature of people when they are in revenge mode, or when they are in
revenge mode is dangerous.
And I suppose when I see remotely, although I've never physically been in it, is where I've seen several times where a person who was killed by another person, and that person does not own up to the crime of killing, and then you have the family of the victim who died take the corpse of this person who's been killed by you, and they cure them and weaponize that dead body and your soul to go and seek revenge. Some of the rituals that they do, some of the cooking of that corpse, some of the klokaing and the darkness that they weaponize that person, that corpse with, are insidious, and it's people
it's dangerous,
who are so. I mean, when you've killed a family member of mine, obviously I don't even want to go wait through the court processes and all of that. I want to go kill you with my own hands. So these rituals are some of the closest things to me that one can do to seek that kind of revenge. And then what happens is that this weapon will work forever and ever and ever.
So,
every single generation of this killer, his children and his children's children and his children, this weapon will be always claiming lives from your family.
Are you telling me that they can make someone dead to wake up his soul and go fight for themselves?
Yes, exactly. And they solicit entities to weaponize. So even if the soul doesn't forget, like the person who's been programmed, go kill everything that belongs to that man and kill his household.
Family, yeah.
And kill doesn't necessarily mean that you're killed and buried. Kill can mean that when his children are lawyers and doctors and they're trying to build homes and get married, he will just about to get married, he's engaged, and the woman just does and it devastates you. It's anything that's going to kill your fortune, kill your luck.
So some of these women are not really going dating multiple men because they want. Some of them are witchcraft, basically. It could happen.
Well, that's one of the things that I find in South Africa now is just insane. How prevalent now. Everybody is looking for money.
Yeah.
And Nyangas, on the one hand, are looking for customers, and they're very easy to find in South Africa because South Africans now, it seems, don't really want to get up and work or get out and do something that they love to do and try and make a living from it. They are so keen to go to Nyangas and say, I want to make him give me money. I not to Nyangas. People write to me on WhatsApp on a regular basis. I want him to love me and to give me money.
Does love potion work?
Of course they work.
Can you get me something? Hey, there's this girl I like.
Yes. If you go to a Nyanga, they will give it to you. I mean, and some of them even say to you that, they could give you a fake snake. Because you're asking for these snakes. Because people believe that there's a particular snake and if umo ifuyile izokwenzela imali, it will bring me money, etc. And the people who, like, I had one Zimbabwean lady, they sell these potions, these things for this and that, and she says we don't go around asking people to come to service. They come to ask. And she says, my sister, she says to another woman, if they want you to give them snakes, give them puppet snakes if you can, because we don't ask them to come to us. And they're the ones who are forcing us to even give them things that are not real anymore. Yeah, one.
It's a dangerous
So the
world,
the consumer themselves is driving Nyangas to manufacture things that don't even exist, because we want, when they leave my place, which is they're going to hear about their spiritual problems, their ancestral problems, so on. They want me to give them something from a spoon in a jar that they can go home and steam with it. If I don't do that, they feel like it's, and I don't do that.
I feel like you're not
my
a
work
real
is not
Sangoma
about that.
yeah.
Yes, I'm not a Nyanga. I don't use medicines. And some people, when I tell them that, they say to me, "What kind of a Sangoma are you then?" Because people don't really understand the difference between the two.
So what are the worst case scenario of someone using love potion on someone to forcefully
The
love them?
worst case scenario is that you are interfering with the energy of that person, and that person is now acting out of being prompted by entities, not because
they really genuinely love
because of their true energy, their true self, their true heart, their true mind, they're being manipulated into something. And these entities now, it's not just entities anymore. They actually go into graves and harvest souls, so that they make the soul stand for them. They clone your energy. And for you, young men and so on, they will use a condom, and you will, discharge into that condom, and they'll tell you, oh, I'll take it and throw it away. They're not throwing it away. They're taking it to a nyanga, and they're going to manipulate. The nyanga is going to create medicine where you now cannot stop thinking of them. Now you're sleeping with women at night in your dreams, thinking that it's people, but it's actual ghosts or other kinds of entities. And you are now spending money like it's, water. And you are now having calamities and different things breaking down, different things happening, where your money you don't see your money anymore. End of the month, you get your salary and it's gone. You don't know where it's gone. And meanwhile, the money and the resources are being siphoned off to the girl. Girls do this to boys, and boys are doing this to girls. And some women, young men, are sleeping with the opposite sex solely for harvesting their DNA, so harvesting their sexual.
It's more like it's twalonyana.
It is. It's twalo sotansi. It's twalo sotansi. It's very, very common now, and many people, because they need to make money, because they cannot ask you for money, and you are not volunteering to give them money.
So they need to find a way.
Yeah, they come in and they hack into your body, and they create this. And when they create this, it becomes a way for them to be financially stable for a while. Meanwhile, at your end, you have no clue why suddenly life switched. I was just speaking
because of that girl.
Yeah, I was just speaking to someone a few days ago who called in, who said, I had cars, I had, businesses, 3 businesses, and so on, and right now I have nothing. I'm having to, and my wife left me. She went with a nyanga, and the nyanga has made her pregnant, because the nyangas are also soliciting the women's energy. If a woman goes to them asking for istwalo, they then harvest her energy, which has harvested his energy, it's the dangerous, other, the husband's energy. So Nyanga is actually siphoning from the woman and siphoning from her husband. He is more or less like the satellite with agents going out there, hooked and attached. And the worst, most lethal of the entities, Umkovu is one of them. Utogoloshe is another one of them. Those two, one of them is a trickster kind of entity. So it diverts you. It makes you make this decision instead of that decision. It's a trickster. And it's a very mischievous energy that makes you not trust yourself, that makes you not connected to your intuition. It drives you this way or that, and confuses you. Umkovu, on the other hand, attaches itself to you. And if you have it, you'll dream like you're breastfeeding a baby or you're holding a baby. You'll have dreams that have babies in them. Like this baby, you're supposed to take responsibility of it. What it is yes, Umkovu is the sucker of the money, the energy from you.
When you're feeding the baby, that's when you're
feeding. Yes.
It's a dangerous world.
It's a horrific world right now in South Africa. And I don't know how other countries. I hear bachazwa in Nigeria, nago Malawi, nago gupi kubachazwa nje ngempela imithi enzima. And I am aware that there are people who will leave their country, like Nigeria, I hear, where Nigerians actually will look at where they're going in Durban from Lagos, and they'll plan ahead of time that they are with their nyangas in Nigeria. They are going to be cooked so that whatever criminal activity they're going to do in that area, they will never be
Caught or anything.
never. The police will just walk by that area as if no one lives there. When, as a Nigerian, you can walk past the police with, a whole car full of money, and they don't
even
or
suspect
drugs.
you.
Yes, it's the kind of mastery of black magic that is in Africa. I've always said if they could use that kind of mastery to end, things like poverty, to
Use it for a greater
to
cause.
to do good.
Before we close it, there's something called body count, right? I'm sure you're aware of it.
No,
So you don't know body count?
no.
So body count is basically the number of people you have slept with your entire
Oh,
life.
right, yes.
So there's,
You're not going to ask me my body count, are you?
if you wanna tell me, you can tell me.
Wow.
So there's this thing of the number of people you've slept with, and
Yeah.
there's boys and girls who have like a body
Body
count
counts, yeah.
of like 80.
Yeah.
And you in your 20s, you basically slept with 80 people.
Yes.
So I want us to talk about
That's just,
you just in your 20s.
and that's just, yeah. But that's just the surface. I mean,
Yeah.
if they tell you it's 80, it's probably 300. Let me tell you that.
you just reveal the unspoken truth.
Yeah.
And then now, if your body count it's 80, can we talk about aura? How sleeping with a multiple number of people affect your energy, affect your aura, affect how you live your life?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for my tradition particularly, or my practice, or my, the philosophy of the Sangoma tradition, is that you notice that we don't even shake hands, right?
Oh,
We say togoza like
Togoza,
this, and you do
okay.
the same. That's because my personal energy as a Sangoma should not interact with yours, because every time we do that shaking of hands or hugging, there is believed to be an exchange of whatever your issues, your darknesses, and so on. They transfer energetically wherever energy you involve yourself with. Rest assured that you're going to pick up energy from someone else that is going to be contaminating you. So the less that you interact with other people's energies, the less maintenance that you need to do.
Okay.
So with sexual interactions, for sure, you are going to be transformed. And for us as practitioners especially, when you even sleep with your husband, when you go into your shrine to take care of medicine or to look after a patient or something, you have to, even in the olden days, they had to do inyongo cleanse to purify the energy that was exchanged with the husband in the sexual intercourse.
Yeah.
And then you can start with the medicines and do your, whatever it is. Now, for young people now, I don't even think that it has much to do with the body count. But you must know that when you go into hospital, there are dead people there. They die there all the time. They're not cleansed. There are babies that pass in the hospitals. Nobody ever shuttles them and releases them from the hospital. So when you show up in nightclubs, people die in nightclubs all the time. They're never cleansed. They're never purified. Those types of spaces that young people hang out in are full of dead spirits, and dead souls can inhabit, they can take possession of you and live in your energy without you knowing for ages. That dead person used to go to that nightclub. They were addicted to drugs and alcohol and sex. The next thing you know, you've gone to the nightclub, you come home, and your behavior changes. Suddenly you're watching porn, suddenly you're wanting more and more alcohol, suddenly it's the soul that has taken your energy. So similarly, when you are changing partners one after another, there's no way that you're going to change one partner and then cleanse.
Yeah.
There's just no way. So the more people that you interact with, the more that you accumulate onto your spiritual energy, your soul energy, your aura.
Yeah.
And it's diverse things like you may have a miscarried child that you haven't cleansed, and you and I interact. The woman has probably aborted 3 or 4 or 5 children,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth. It's a anytime that you are engaging with another energy outside of yourself, you need to be in protection of your own energy, and you need to also create boundaries spiritually with certain people so that you're not trapping into your aura energy that is going to trouble you later because it stays in your energy. And then people who are looking for work, people who are looking to progress in life in some way, people who are looking to be charismatic, there are purification processes that you can do to regularly purify your aura, regularly purify your energy, as well as you don't have to go to a Sangoma to tell you that there's a miscarried child and it's not cleansed, etc., and you picked it up from that girl that you slept with. You can just do regular maintenance, excuse me, of your spiritual aura, and salts and things like that people have said, can I use salt and bath and Epsom salts and things. For me as a Sangoma, knowing what it takes to cleanse and purify certain things, I know I use eggs.
Eggs. You bath with eggs?
Yes. And I speak over the eggs first, though, before they are broken. I speak over the eggs and I ask, if I'm asking to purify my aura, for example, I'll use 18 eggs. And I'll speak over the 18 eggs and say, Kukula isimo, or transform my energy and my aura to delete and discard from it all that is negatively attached to me. I'll speak over the 18, and then I'll break the eggs and blend them very thoroughly until they're yellow liquid, and then I'll take out a cupful and I'll cook that cupful and eat it so that the internal DNA is also disengaging these things from the inside. Then the remaining eggs, I will bath with. I will use the egg like soap over my body. Doesn't have to be hair. And then I do purify with, rinse rather with water on top. And if you go to my TikTok page, there are many suggested remedies for different things. Some deep things. But this one is a light one that you can do every week or every other month or whatever, just to make sure that, the body count doesn't count on your soul and your...
So we can reduce the body count by cleansing.
You can reduce the after effects of the body count,
So I can tell that we have a real Sangoma right here because it's even starting to rain outside. There's lightning. But thank you so much for coming to the show. This has been an insightful conversation. Guys, please make sure to follow Sangoma. She already has a huge following on TikTok. She was like 300,000 or 400,000. So thank you so much for this insightful information. Before we close it, how long can it take to summon lightning?
Angaz. But my ancestor, the story of my ancestor or great grandfather, Fela Parati, he was like Inkabi.
Okay.
So people would come from different parts of the country to commission him to go and kill someone using lightning.
Oh.
He was Inkabi Zulu, yes. But iwayiholi inkomo ngayo leyo nto leyo.
Oh, okay.
So they would literally bring money and he would do that. So before he died, when he was quite old, another Nyanga who was another like Nkabi Zulu Nyanga, they had a competition going. And
lightning for lightning.
Yes. And who would hit the other with, the bigger lightning. And they did it. The other Nyanga dropped dead. But guess what happened to my ancestor, my great-grandfather, Fela Parati? The lightning split his bum. The lightning split his behind, and he had 4...
No way.
No way. It split his behind, and he died not being able to walk as older, and he would ride a horse with the four bums.
Force, please.
It split in two like that, and that's people who saw him.
Yo, I'm scared of lightning.
There he is.
He knows
He's
me. I'm
acknowledging.
scared
He's
of
acknowledging,
lightning.
and I'm glad I mentioned him. And for the longest time, I was afraid to take on the calling, because I thought, I don't think I want to take
Yo, four bums
on
is
that
crazy.
kind of legacy. No, but there he is. He's
It's
clearly
pouring
talking
outside.
to us. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thokoza, Cook.
Thokoza, of course. Thokoza.
Yo,